Hello everyone, I have a quick little share for you today. It's something different. It's not a journal, it's not journal related, though it could be, and I will tell you about that later in the video. I am bringing you today some little fabric collage wall hangings. The inspiration behind this was one that I made for myself. This was a combination of, what am I trying to say? The purpose behind this was to take certain antique items like this and create something around them that I could display. There. Not necessarily just put into a book, but something that could be displayed. I have authentic skeleton keys that are antique, and I also had these little squares of crochet that I got at an estate sale from a lady that had made just these little, I don't know if they were just little pieces that she started, or if she was going to combine them into something larger, or if they were just practice sample pieces, which is what I think that they were. I'm not 100% sure though, but I had several of them, and most of them are finished. This one was not, but most of them were finished and just ready to be used. One of them did have some damage to one side, but once it was sewn on, it was fine. So I had the sample piece here and the skeleton key, and I added some vintage wallpaper and fabric and a little quote pinned on here. This one is not perfect. It has flaws. It was a learning experience, but I'm okay with the flaws. I've come to just embrace things like that, and it just adds to, in my opinion, it adds to the value of things that I've handmade, because they're not perfect. They have flaws. They're just, it's part of me and and part of my learning and growing experience as an artist. Like for instance, on this, because I was wrapping the wire around the key through wallpaper, it wrinkled the wallpaper and kind of tore it a little bit. It's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. This has a typo in it. Again, doesn't bother me, and that's why I kept this. I was making a quote for something else. Excuse me. And I made a mistake and just kept going and decided I'll keep that and use it in my own collage or my own journal or something like that. But then I decided to use it for this, and I added this little picture of these ladies who look like really good friends, because it went with the quote, which says, "Because of you, I laugh a little harder, cry a little less, and smile a lot more." And I thought that was very fitting for friendship. And then I added some vintage buttons and a vintage bead, as well as just a little spacer bead, and garment pins to hang it. And then I randomly found this wire. I don't know where it came from or what its previous life was, but it was just on my craft table. I saved it from something ages ago probably, and decided that it would make good little hangers for these. It's quite stiff, it's sturdy, and it doesn't bend like super easily, but enough that I could create little hangers for this. So that one is mine. That one's not for sale. It was just my inspiration to make these others. I did get several keys from it's like a garage sale type flea market thing that we have once a year here in the area, and so I was able to find several of those to go along with these little crocheted little squares. I don't know what I'm trying to say. So this one is backed on some canvas fabric, which gives it some stability. Have a little cluster of vintage fabrics. This was part of a hanky, and this was just a part of a table linen with some vintage buttons, a shell button. This one was a Bakelite button, a picture of a mother and daughter here, and in my mind, this is just a little picture that the mother would have had on a necklace of her daughter. It has a little bead here. This fabric came from the same lady that created these little sample squares. She had a bunch of fabrics that were cut and ready to be made into a quilt, but she was never able to do that. And some trim that she made as well. And the little hanger on each one is slightly different. Very rustic, and fitting, in my opinion. This one here has an antique earring. This was a clip-on earring that I took the back off of and attached to this little cluster rosette that I made out of some vintage trim and some yarn. This has some little blue flowers on here and some vintage fabrics and lace layered up with the skeleton key, and you can see the lace down here, and you can see the edge on this one. It was the corner of a vintage hanky. And then an image of a little girl here, and a piece of trim. This one is backed on some blue felt. The pictures are just clipped on with some paper clips that I rusted to make look older. So they can be removed. Some of them might be a little harder than others because, like for instance, this one, it is pinned through the crocheted square. This one is backed with some green canvas. It has some vintage rose fabric here on one edge. A little piece of that table linen. Some more vintage buttons. This one I'm not sure the material, or that one I believe is just plastic, but this one you can tell is Bakelite because it's very cracked and aged. An image of a lady here, little piece of trim. The crocheted lace and a different kind of key, and some trim on the top of there as well. This one is backed on some felt as well, and it has this vintage, it's a different kind of table linen. It was, I believe, a tablecloth that I cut up, and it has stains and stuff on it. You can't tell with all the collage, but I'm okay with that. Some vintage buttons as well, and a pearl bead. A picture of a little girl, which I thought was fitting for this because of the pink and blue. It was very feminine looking. This is a vintage earring with a pink rhinestone that I attached on here, and you can't see anything on the back of where it's attached, but it's permanently attached. This was a embroidered, I believe it was hand embroidered, vintage hanky. It's just left loose there, and some vintage lace under that. So each one has, I don't remember if I said this or not, but the hangers are attached simply with rusted up garment pins. Now my thought on this and how you could incorporate these into a journal if you chose to was, I know many of us have been making fabric flips in our journals, or we have lace along the top or something like that, and they could easily be pinned onto a page of a journal if you pin it to a piece of lace or fabric, which I think would be a cute little collage element in your journal if you so chose to do that. And of course, because it's on pins, you can easily take the hangers off. Or if you're like me, you may want to just display them as on, it could be displayed on a wall or near your desk or on a, what are they called? Mood boards, that's what I was thinking. So there they are. They will be listed on my Etsy here by the time the video is done, with all of the measurements and details and things like that. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.